There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from stillness. It comes from running. Running until your lungs burn, until your legs forget how to stop, until the world behind you fades into something you hope can't find you again. That was her, a woman with nothing but the clothes on her back, a name she barely used anymore, and a past that chased her like a shadow too long in the sun. She didn't ask for help, didn't look like she needed it. But when the storm hit and the river swelled higher than any man could cross alone, someone stepped in. And that someone? He wasn't looking to save anyone either. He'd spent years outrunning his own ghosts. A man who lived by the edge of town, kept to himself, and only spoke when there was something worth saying. But when he found her standing in the rain, soaked through and silent, he did the only thing that made sense. He carried her across the flood, and never quite put her down. It started the night the sky cracked open. Rain came down in sheets so thick they turned dirt roads into rivers and roofs into drums. The wind howled like it had something to say, but no one was listening. By morning, the valley was unrecognizable. The bridge was gone, washed away like paper. Trees stood half uprooted, leaning like tired giants. And somewhere between the hills, a wagon sat overturned, its wheels buried in mud. Inside the wreckage, a woman, clad in torn fabric, hands raw, eyes fixed not on the wreck, but on the swollen river ahead. Her name was Ruth, at least that's what she told him later. No last name, no story, just Ruth. He didn't press. Not then. He'd already seen. Enough in her face to know some things take time to heal. She didn't speak when he helped her up, didn't flinch when he handed her half his canteen and the last of his dried meat. Just took it, quietly, like she was used to surviving on scraps. They camped under a broken pine that night, fire flickering against the dark. Still, she didn't talk, didn't ask where they were going, didn't say why she was running, and he didn't ask, because some people don't need questions, they need space. Time, someone to sit beside them while they decide if they're ready to live again. Days passed like old songs, slow, half forgotten but familiar. They moved north by instinct more than direction. Deer trails led them. Creek beds guided their steps. She walked now, careful, measured. Not afraid, not lost, just cautious. He stayed close, never crowding, always watching. Sometimes, when the wind shifted just right, he caught her glancing over her shoulder. Not out of fear, out of habit, like danger had once been a constant. And now she wasn't sure how. To believe it wasn't. One evening, near a ridge blanketed in snow, she finally spoke. "I don't know where I'm going," she said, staring at the fire. "You don't have to," he replied. "Not today." She looked at him then. "Really?" "Looked, I still feel like I'm running." He nodded, slow. "So do I." Neither of them moved, and somehow that was something. They found shelter in an old hunting shack tucked beneath the trees. No roof to speak of. Floor sagging. Wind whistling through cracks like it was trying to remind them how cold the world could be. But it was dry, that was enough. She lit a fire while he checked the traps. Came back with 2 rabbits, one skinnier than the other. She cleaned them without flinching. Didn't talk much, but she listened. And that meant more than most people knew how to give. Later that night, as the flames died low, she asked, "Why are you still here?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "I know what it's like to carry something heavy, to think the only way forward is alone." She didn't answer right away, just stared into the fire, then whispered, "I stopped praying after that." He didn't ask what she meant. Not yet. Some truths aren't spoken. They're waited for. Winter held on longer than expected. Snow melted in patches. Ground softened slowly. Ice groaned under boots, but the cold clung to the air like a dog not ready to give up its bone. Ruth began to move differently, less like a ghost, more like a woman with calluses and reasons. She swept the porch without being asked, mended a loose shutter with wire and grit, brought home eggs in her apron from the coop. Behind the church, Her hair grew darker with rest and washing, sometimes caught the light in a way that made him forget the world entirely for half a second, but he never let the forgetting last, because truth had a way of waiting just outside the door, and hers hadn't been spoken yet. One morning, he found her in the barn, brushing down the old mare, movement slow, steady. She had a name, she asked, not looking up. He paused. Yeah, she waited. Maggie. Ruth nodded like she'd heard the name before, or maybe just liked knowing he remembered. After a moment, she said softly, I had a child. He didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. A son. Voice steady, far off. He didn't make it. To his second spring, he reached for her hand, slow fingers curling around hers. I stopped praying after that, she whispered. Stopped believing there was anything worth asking for. He understood that better than he could say. I carried him, she said, from the day he was born until the day he left. His grip tightened, not out of pity, out of something steadier. Recognition. Spring came late that year. By mid-March, the snow had begun to rot, peeling back in clumps from the scrub, revealing earth hard as old leather. Streams ran grey with melt. Sky stretched wider each day, but the cold still crept in at night, and sometimes so did the past. Ruth would wake early, step barefoot onto the porch, watch the light stretch over the field. He'd join her, without speaking, hand her a tin cup of coffee. Together, they'd watch the world stir, quiet, real, growing. Mercy Creek settled into the season like a dog curling up beside a fire, cautious still, but trusting the peace to hold a while longer. She took over the baking at Miss Bell's kitchen. Started, selling loaves to the mercantile. He taught her how to read the sky for storms, how to tell by scent when a horse was sick, how to carry a wound without letting it fester. They lived beside each other, not tangled, but twined. Like two trees growing side by side, weathering the same winds. Sometimes she'd hum while kneading dough, low, soft. Like music returning after a long silence. He'd smile, just barely. But it was enough. Trouble always finds a way. Mid-July brought a rider, broad-shouldered, clean coat, spurs that jingled too loud. He asked for Eli by name. Crowley sent word before he arrived. Eli read the note once, then burned it in the stove. You going to tell me who he is? Ruth asked. He stood by the sink, hands deep in water, scrubbing. At tin plates like he meant to erase time. Fowler rode with me once, before everything. She waited. He's not here for talk. You sure? He looked at her then, really looked. He's the one that marked me. The one who said we had to burn it all or leave no witness. Her breath caught. He carved his answer. Eli added, voice low. He's here to finish it. They talked that night about the kind of men who live on blood and silence, about the bodies Elijah had buried, the ones he couldn't, about wounds that never stop aching. I ain't proud of what I done. I ain't asking you to be. Next morning, Fowler rode in slow, tied his horse in front of the saloon, stepped inside like he owned the boards. Eli met him at the church steps. The whole town stilled. The preacher kept the children inside. The wind dropped out. Ruth stood beside Elijah, rifle slung. Fowler laughed. You bring in a widow to a shootout? Eli didn't blink. She's the better shot. Fowler hesitated. Then the boy came running. Something's eaten the carrots. The sound broke the air, cracked the spell. Fowler blinked. Eli used the pause, stepped closer, took the pistol, broke the stock, tossed the barrel into the dust. Fowler spat blood. Eli leaned in. You ride now, don't come back. Somehow the man did. Summer opened slow, warm and forgiving. Air turned heavy with sage and sun. River ran low and golden. Hills held the long hum of crickets through dusk. Mercy Creek celebrated Founder's Day with bunting and pies, fiddle reels. In the square, Ruth stood beside Eli that night, wore a dress the color of new leaves, boots scrubbed until the leather gleamed. The town welcomed her like she'd always belonged. Sheriff tipped his hat. Blacksmith's boy asked for a dance. She smiled. Just once. But it reached her eyes. They shared the cot for the first time that night. No declarations, no promises. Just her back to his chest, fingers tucked against his ribs, his arm across her, protective in a way that asked nothing. In the dark, she whispered, "When you carried me across the river, he didn't move. I felt like I could breathe again." He kissed the top of her head, didn't speak, just held her through the quiet, through the dark, through the beginning of something neither of them had expected. Come spring, they planted again. Bigger this time. Garden fenced strong. Rows marked with stone. The girl helped with seed. The boy kept crows at bay with a slingshot Eli had whittled him. Ruth taught the girl her lullaby, the one her mother used to hum, at first shaky, then steadier, until the girl carried the tune better than memory ever could. Eli carved wooden animals now, small, fit in a child's hand. One morning, she found him working on a tiny horse, rough, unfinished. He tucked it away when he saw her, but the next day, it lay on her pillow. She didn't ask who it was for. She already knew. By winter, snow returned quietly, blanketing the town in silence. But this time, it felt less like a burial, more like a blanket pulled over tired shoulders. She lit a lantern, set it on the windowsill. Eli carved beside the fire. Wooden toys now for the boy and girl. Small animals that could fit in a child's hand. She read, by the stove, the Bible one day, a tattered novel the next. No need to fill the silence. It was theirs, and in time, folks came to say they belonged, not just survivors, not just names on a ledger, but part of the bones of the place. Come spring, they planted again, bigger this time. The garden thrived, birds sang, children played, and beneath it all, a fire that burned. Steady, warm, unbroken. If you love this story, share it, like it. Comment below with where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because stories like Ruth's deserve to be heard. Don't be part of the 96% who watch and walk away. Be part of the 4% keeping these stories alive. Thanks for watching. See you next time.